You've probably heard about the new long-term care tax coming to you in the state of Washington. We've gotten a ton of questions about it. So this week, we thought we would address what it is and what you should do about it and what are your options out there. All right, so you may or may not have heard that the state of Washington has actually signed a new long-term care tax into law. It'll take effect January 1st of 2022. So what I wanted to do is, one, quickly define what it is, and then what are your options for potentially opting out or not. So first of all, what is the tax? It's a 0.58% tax on your gross earnings. You have to get qualifying coverage to opt out by November 1st. If you're self-employed, you can just choose to opt out of this tax. It can actually eat up a lot of your earnings potentially when you think about that. So a 0.58% tax. What that means is $580 of annual taxation for every $100,000 that you earn. What is it going to cover? What is it going to actually get you? There's going to be a $36,500 lifetime benefits. So essentially what that means is you get $100 of long-term care coverage per day for 12 months. And that's it. You're going to be paying this taxes until the day you retire. For some folks, it just makes sense to pay the tax, and for some folks, it actually makes to look at to opt out and potentially look at alternatives. So it's really important to note that if you want to opt out of this, there's basically one time that you can do it, and you need to do it by November 1st of this year, and you actually have to have care proof of coverage in place by November 1st to actually opt out of this. So what are the alternatives? We'll get into that next. So who should consider opting out of the tax? One, high earners. So if you simply make a lot in gross revenue, north of $300,000 a year for a household, that might be something where it may make more sense to reposition those tax dollars into a personal long-term care package to get more out of what you're putting into it. So this only covers people that stay in the state of Washington. So if you plan on working here and staying here through retirement, it would make sense potentially to pay the tax. But if you're looking at potentially moving out of state, you're going to pay into the system and never actually reap the benefits of that. And the third piece are folks that are going to retire within the next 5 to 6 years. So there actually is a vesting schedule to this tax. So you basically need to pay it's 5 out of the last 10 years or 3 out of the last 6 years. You're going to need to pay into this to even reap any rewards. So basically, if you're going to retire within the next 5 years, you're just not going to vest and reap any rewards from the taxes that you actually pay into the system. So alternatives, if you want to opt out, what are some of your alternatives? So first and foremost, it's important to know that you have to have coverage in place by November 1st of this year. And that's as of right now. They could kick the can a little bit, but that's actually what's in place by the state of Washington currently. So if you want to look elsewhere, into the private market instead of paying the tax, you've got a few different options. One, you have the traditional long-term care insurance. There are some unique things about that. The difficulty with that form of insurance, kind of the pros and cons, you're buying a defined benefit, a future benefit for long-term care needs. The potential for increase in premiums ongoing it can be pretty substantial. So we've actually seen 45% increases in long-term care premiums for individual policies over the last handful of years. So it's not always necessarily the best option from a pricing standpoint. The second option out there versus traditional long-term care is something called asset-based long-term care. The unique thing about this is you can essentially reposition money that might just be sitting in the bank not doing much for you, reposition it into a product that gives you more long-term care coverage than maybe the tax would actually provide you with, control over the asset long-term, and then return of premium. So if you don't actually need long-term care, your estate can bring those dollars back. And so you're not losing tax revenue for a policy that you may never earn. There's a few alternatives out there. The thing I would really caution people about with regards to all of this, it needs to be backed into your actual retirement plan. So what I've started to see in my LinkedIn feed and my Facebook feed is a bunch of insurance sales folks out there saying, buy this now, selling you off of fear and greed. Those are kind of the two emotions people operate on. So what I would really caution people about is just to blindly go out there and buy a product that hasn't been stressed in your financial plan. And that's really what we're trying to do at 10 Capital is, one, define the problem. What are your alternatives, and does it make sense to look at one of these other options? So with any questions that you may have, call us. We would love to have that conversation with you. And obviously for our planning clients, which is the vast majority of you out there, we can kind of tell you what might make sense for you, how much coverage might make sense for you, and does it even make sense to look at an alternative out there. Hope this was insightful. We'll talk to you soon.